In the cold silence of a grey-walled interrogation room, a young man sat chained to a metal chair, his eyes calm, his hands steady, his soul heavy, but unbroken. His name was Daniel Home, and tonight, he was the man everyone believed to be a monster. Everyone except the woman who would risk everything to uncover the truth. But before I take you deep into this story of love, justice, and redemption, tell me in the comments, where are you watching from? And don't forget to like this video and subscribe, because what you're about to hear, that'll change how you see mercy forever. The clock on the courtroom wall ticked with cruel patience, each second slicing through the air like a blade. I was Carina Lindström, a young prosecutor in Stockholm, known for being relentless, precise, and unshakably loyal to the law. The system was my world, my armor, my proof that justice existed. But that belief began to tremble the moment Daniel Home entered my life. His case file was thin, too thin. Just a single complaint from a woman named Ellen Nord, claiming assault and coercion. No witnesses, no physical evidence, just words written with a kind of trembling precision that didn't feel natural. Something in that statement, the spacing, the phrasing, it felt rehearsed, dictated even. But the higher-ups didn't care. They wanted a conviction, fast and clean. When Daniel walked into the courtroom, escorted by 2 officers, I expected a defiant criminal. Instead, I found a man whose eyes told a different story, eyes that carried both pain and dignity. He stood there quietly, shoulders straight, head high, and when I asked if he had a lawyer, he simply said, "No, ma'am, I have no defense, only a request. Before I die, I want to experience what fate denied me." The courtroom fell silent, the words hanging like fog. I had prosecuted dozens of men, but none had spoken like that. His voice didn't beg, it mourned. That night, when I returned home, my grandmother Ingrid sat waiting by the window, her grey hair glowing under the warm lamplight. She looked up and said softly, "Carina, don't let the law turn your heart into stone. Justice isn't always written on paper." I smiled weakly, trying to shake her words off, but deep down, I knew she was right. Something about Daniel's calmness unsettled the part of me that still believed in humanity. Days turned into weeks, and every time I reviewed the case, something didn't add up. Ellen's statement kept changing, small inconsistencies, shifts in timelines, emotions that felt forced. And then, a name began to surface again and again, Victor Nord. Ellen's husband, a wealthy businessman known for his temper and his connections. I tried to ignore it, but one afternoon, an anonymous letter landed on my desk. "If you want the truth about Daniel Home, ask who really wrote the report." It was unsigned, smudged, and smelled faintly of smoke. My hands trembled as I read it. The next day, I requested access to Ellen's call records. They had been restricted, by court order, from someone far above my clearance. That was when I realized this wasn't a case, it was a cover-up. That night, as rain beat against my apartment window, I couldn't sleep. The law said Daniel was guilty, but my instincts screamed otherwise. So, I did what every prosecutor is forbidden to do. I went to see him in his cell. He was sitting quietly, sketching something on a scrap of paper. When he saw me, he didn't stand or panic. He just smiled faintly, tired but warm. "Miss Lindström," he said softly, "I didn't think you'd come. Why didn't you fight the charges?" "Daniel," I asked. He paused, then looked up with eyes that pierced through every rule I'd ever lived by. Because no one listens when the poor speak against the powerful, silence filled the cell. His words weren't bitter, they were true. And truth has a way of haunting you long after you leave the room. That night, I replayed every case I'd ever won, and for the first time, I wondered how many of them were truly just. A week later, I received a call from a janitor who worked near Ellen's home. His voice shook as he spoke. I saw her crying that night. A man was shouting at her. Her husband, Victor, he said she had to fix her mistake. He'd fix her himself. I asked him why he hadn't come forward. His answer was simple. "People like me don't speak in your courts, miss. We just clean them." I knew what I had to do. The next hearing was cold and tense. The prosecutor's bench felt like a battlefield. Ellen sat trembling, her husband's shadow towering behind her in the gallery. Daniel stood silently, hands clasped, eyes down. I rose and said, "Your Honor, the evidence in this case does not hold. There are contradictions, missing documents, and a motive for coercion." Gasps filled the courtroom. The judge frowned. "Ms. Lindstrom, are you withdrawing your claim?" "No, Your Honor," I said. "I'm revealing the truth." I turned to Ellen, her eyes wide with fear. "You're not the enemy. Ellen, you're a victim too. Tell the truth. No one can hurt you now." She broke. Tears streamed down her face as she confessed. "My husband made me write it. He said if I didn't, he'd destroy Daniel and me both." The room erupted in whispers. Victor rose in fury, but guards restrained him. Daniel's chains fell away. The judge declared, "Case dismissed. The accused is free." For the first time in months, I breathed. Justice, real justice, had found its way through the cracks. Outside the courthouse, Daniel stood in the sunlight, his eyes closed, the cold air washing over him like a baptism. He turned to me and said softly, "You didn't just save me, Karina. You reminded me that good people still exist." I smiled, though my heart raced faster than it should have. "You're free now. That's all that matters." But freedom didn't mean silence. Weeks later, Daniel opened a small workshop downtown, a furniture restoration shop where old, broken things found new life under his hands. I visited one evening after work, pretending it was for paperwork. He laughed. "You're the first prosecutor who brings flowers instead of files." Days turned into dinners, dinners into long walks, and before we knew it, something unspoken began to grow. It wasn't rushed, it wasn't loud, but it was real. He had seen me at my most rigid, and I had seen him at his most fragile. And somehow, those two broken edges fit together perfectly. Then came the threats. Anonymous letters slipped under my door. Glass shattered in his shop window. "You can't hide forever." One note read. But we didn't stop seeing each other. We didn't stop believing. One night, sitting by candlelight as rain drummed the roof, my grandmother whispered, "Love is also a law, Karina, a law of the heart, and sometimes that's the only one worth following." She was right. We married quietly, in a small chapel on the edge of town. No press, no guests, just us, Ingrid, and the sound of rain. As we exchanged vows, I realized something the law had never taught me. Duty is not in the protocols. It's in the promises we make to protect what's right. When the ceremony ended, Daniel squeezed my hand and whispered, "They said this love wouldn't last." I smiled through tears. "Then let's prove them wrong." As we stepped out into the rain, a new letter lay at the chapel door. I picked it up, read it once, and crumpled it in my fist. I didn't care what it said, because this time I wasn't afraid. The law had taught me to fight for truth. Daniel had taught me to feel it, and in that balance, I finally found who I was meant to be. And maybe that's the message we all need tonight, that sometimes justice isn't found in the courtroom. It's found in the courage to love what's right. If this story touched your heart, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe, and share it with someone who still believes in second chances. Because in the end, when rules fail, humanity wins.